Hi, this is Gene Trowbridge. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Trowbridge Nieh, and we are securities attorneys. We help people who want to form a group of investors and raise money for those investors so that they can invest in real estate or other business opportunities that they have. And today I'm going to share a success story with you of one of our sponsors. Now, we do an awful lot of business in multifamily. Probably as far as real estate goes, that's the most common type of syndication we do. And I'm going to talk to you today about a California syndicator who hired us, and this syndicator was going to buy a property in Decatur, Georgia, a 122-unit townhome project. And this syndicator was going to raise $1,100,000 in equity and structured the deal so the minimum investment from an investor would be $50,000 and $5,000 units over and above that. So someone could invest 50 or 65 or 100,000 as long as it was in $5,000 increments. Now, this sponsor's his distribution pattern with his investors was relatively simple. It was a 70-30 split. The investors would get 70% of all the cash flow from operations. The sponsor would get 30% after the investors got a 6% preferred return. So the first thing that would happen is if they raised, which they did, $1.1 million, when we got down to the end of the year and there was cash flow to distribute, the first distribution each year would have been $66,000, 6% preferred return, and then whatever else there was to distribute would be split 70% to the investors and 30% to the sponsors. Now, in this case, the sponsor bought their 30% for $1,000. And you'll find this happens quite a bit on our offerings. It's important for the sponsor to pay for what they're retaining or buying so that it doesn't turn out to be ordinary income. When you think about it, if you're going to buy an apartment building, a townhouse project, and you're going to immediately take 30% ownership, well, 30% of the value of that property now becomes ordinary income on the day that you close. So we don't want that to happen. We have the investor purchase their claim to 30. And by purchasing it, it's not income. And by purchasing it, we set the sponsor up for the possibility of claiming capital gains treatment on whatever they receive in the future. And then one other very important issue that goes toward how does a sponsor get to buy 30% with just $1,000? The 30% on a sale, when all the money comes back, is subordinate to the investors getting their money back first. So they would get their money back first, then the profits on the disposition would be split 70-30 to the sponsor. And that allows the sponsor to make a small payment, which is important, to purchase that 30%. So what did the sponsor take for fees? Well, the sponsors took an 8% acquisition and due diligence fee for finding the project and doing all the work for bringing the project to the investors. That was $88,000, and the sponsor took a $40,000 loan guarantee fee. And this is kind of interesting. When the sponsor is asked to sign on loan, which had some recourse provisions, that signature is valuable. Okay? And somehow, someone needs to be compensated for that. And so in this case, the sponsors signed, and they had to sign individually, and they took a 1% loan guarantee fee. The loan was $44 million, and they took a $40,000 loan guarantee fee. Now, so what's interesting about this was the first of 14 deals this sponsor has done with us, and the property was purchased. They still own the property, but after about 5 years, they were able to refinance the property and give the investors half of their original investment back, about $550,000, and then continue to own and operate the property. So it's a real success. Now, one of the things I found for myself, and I found for many, many syndicators, is how did you happen to become a syndicator on your first deal? Well, with this group, they were an established real estate investor group. They had properties that they owned themselves. But here comes a property that was too big for them to take down by themselves. Or if they could have, they chose not to. And the $1,100,000 was something that they thought they would go out to investors and raise that money and buy the property in a group. Now, over the years, I've interviewed 38 sponsors, and I always ask them the same question: how did you get to be a syndicator? And they always had the same answer that I had when I was a syndicator. I found a property that was too big to do by myself, so I put together a group of investors. Now, it's nice if you have a track record, if you've done a few investments yourself, so that you can show the investors that you know what you're doing. I had that position, and this group that was going to be the sponsor had that position also. So there's a success story as it relates to a first-time syndicator at that time doing a multifamily project, 122 unit townhouse project in Georgia. So this has been Gene Trowbridge with Trowbridge Nieh Law Group. I'm a securities lawyer. I'd be happy to talk to you about your needs for legal representation when you put together a group to buy real estate or other business opportunities. My phone number is 949-570-1507. And our website is TN, as in Trowbridge Nieh, TNLLP.com. Thank you.